I'm at a conference in Connecticut, but I should be back in time. On the Potter League grounds. The Potter League. It's an animal shelter in downtown. Vet clinics in Warwick and East Providence.
All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to get things going here. Tonight is Thursday, April 13th. It's around 7 p.m., and we're here for a public hearing regarding the preliminary budget fiscal year 23-24 as adopted, and we have the school committee here with us as well. But first order of business, as always, is the pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today. Next is going to be the roll call. If you would, Susan.
Council President McEntee.
Here.
Council Vice President Marin.
Here.
Councilwoman Bergner. Here. Councilwoman Alley.
Here.
Councilwoman Rose.
Here.
All council members are present.
Thank you. Now I'll turn to School Committee Chair Paula Whitford to take the role of the school committee.
School Committee, Ms. Calabetta.
Here.
Mr. Bradley Chair.
Here.
Ms. Kate Massinensi.
Here.
Melissa Boyd.
Here.
Excuse me. Michelle Busso.
Here.
And myself, Paula Whitford, here.
Thank you. All right, that's going to move us to item 4A here, which is a public hearing relative to the Town Council's preliminary budget for fiscal year 23-24 as adopted on March 20, 2023. Before we get into that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Maney to do an introduction here, presentation.
Thank you, Council President. I will go over, we have 24 pages that we will fly through. It's just a recap of what we've been working on for the past couple of months, so we all can remember where we were and where we're going. So I'll go over this stuff real quick, though. If you go to page 3, public hearings. So this is the first of 2 public hearings that are required to be conducted on the preliminary budget prior to April 18th. State law requires it, and our ordinance requires it. So this is the first one. Next Monday is the second one. The final action on the budget by the Town Council shall occur on or before May 1st of each year. And the Town Council would consider any petitions received, gives final approval to the final budget by a majority vote of the members of this council. Once again, it's in our town charter requirement. Go to page 4. So we are in April of 2023, Thursday, April 13th, public hearing number 1, fiscal year 23-24, municipal and school budgets. Page 5. So this is where we left off on when all the budget workshops, and this is the preliminary budget right here, the proposed budget. So if you look at the first line, is a 1.63% tax levy increase over fiscal year 22-23, which equates to a 1.10% proposed tax rate increase to $11.07 a thousand from $10.95 per thousand, which reflects a 12-cent tax rate increase. Bullet number 3, the net property tax levy in fiscal year 24, which is proposed, is $76,157,776, of which $18,772,535, or a 24.65%, is related to the town operations, and $57,385,241, or 75.35%, is related to the school department operations. Bullet 4, all funds budgeted is up $2,474,280, or a 2.41% compared to fiscal 22-23. So fiscal year '24, the budget is $105,013,974 versus last year, fiscal year '23, $102,539,596. Overall, I think that's a pretty good budget considering the tremendous inflation we had this past year and the challenges we have finding people in our workforce, which created overtime. So I'll turn it over to, we'll start getting into the minutia of it on page 6, and I'll turn that over to Brian Sylvia, who's the our town finance director.
Thank you, Jim. On page 6 is a summary of the changes that were adopted on March 20th. Again, there was the state library aid for endowment was budgeted for twice, both within the state library aid and the endowment for $20,006. That had to be backed out. And we also had to budget for the presidential preference primary for next year, which hadn't been budgeted for. That created a change in what was the town manager's budget of $16,585, bringing the new general fund proposed budget to $30,824,918. And this is a summary of the budget. Some of these items you've already heard from Jim, but the school fund is proposed at $62,635,680, excuse me. That's a 1.07% increase. General fund is proposed at $30,824,918. That is proposed at a 5.37% increase. In terms of general fund non-property taxes, general fund revenues non-property taxes, that is proposed at $13,870,703, or a 4.41% increase. And the property tax levy, as noted previously, is up 1.63%, and an overall increase of $1,222,880. The proposed transfer to schools is level funded at $55,994,773. And again, the overall tax increase on the rate is proposed at 1.1% increase to 1107. Breaking down the levy a little further, this provides information on the levy and the breakdown between the school and town, where you'll see of the levy, $18,772,535 is associated with the town, or as mentioned, the 24.65%, whereas the school is $57,385,241, or 75.35%. And again, at the bottom, you'll see the levy increase of the 1.63% and how we arrived at that, the $1,223,075. Into the tax rate analysis, the one item I was going to note on this page is the proposed tax assessed value. The first column, that is showing a assumed increase of 0.53% over the current year, and that is why, again, you'll see a levy increase of 1.63%, but the rate is only going up 1.1%. We do have assessed values up that 0.53%. On the all funds budgeted, as Jim noted earlier, we're proposing a total amount of $105,013,975, which again is a 2.41% increase. On general revenue is up from a total of $1,500,000 $571,690. That is predominantly associated with public safety, which of that amount, $875,000 is associated with public safety. And on the revenues, again, up the same amount, the almost 1.6 million, 1,571,000. That is attributable to, here it's listed because we're comparing against the adopted budget from last year. So you're seeing a sharp increase in state aid. That was actually realized last year. When the budget was adopted last year, we hadn't had the final year of the phase-out, motor vehicle phase-out enacted. So what you're showing here is a large increase in state aid, but if this was compared against our revised budget, the swing is actually, the state aid increase was actually in FY '23, and that roughly $1 million increase is actually on the property taxes. But that's why you're seeing it the way you are right now. This is against the adopted budget from last year. On the general revenue, again, this is a further breakdown. You'll see, again, of that 1.571 million, the largest driver here is wages, which is up just over $900,000, making up a large piece of the town's increase. And on the revenue, again, this is actually the same slide as previously, so it's going to be on property taxes, but it's actually showing here as state aid. On page 13, this is looking at the school department, which is up overall 1.07%, or $660,000. The driver here is state aid, which is up $500,000. And on the, and I took them out of order there. On the expense side, the driver here, their services are up 1.3 million, whereas wages are down 747,000. Peacedale office building is proposed for an increase of 15,766. The largest increase here is on capital outlay, which is up $12,755. And on revenue is only up $3,311, and the largest increase there is on the licenses, fees, and rents, which is up $2,903. Senior services is up $28,156. The largest driver there is on commodities, which is up $50,697, and capital outlay is actually down $43,000. And then on the revenue side of the equation, also up $28,156. The largest increase on the revenue is with regards to grants, which is up $42,775. And on the revenue side, department revenues, fine, and charges are up $162,000. Rec Center is up $95,766. Of that amount, services is up $67,944, and capital outlay is up $21,385. And on revenue, department revenue, fines, and charges is up $85,823. On debt service is actually showing a reduction as year-over-year debt continues to go down as payments are received and the overall outstanding balance goes down. So debt service is going down as opposed to last year by $115,766. Just to illustrate that a little further, we provided this information previously, but I added a column for the estimated balance as of June 30, 2023. So there you see, by the end of the current fiscal year, we'll be down to $15,841,000. Excuse me. And actually, I should note too, within the bottom number within general obligation bonds, the general obligation bond series 2022. Within that number is $890,000 associated with the Guild, which is being funded from the Guild. So that actually general fund debt outstanding is will be at the end of June 30th, 2023, will be $14,753,000 as opposed to the $15,643,000. So we will be just under $15 million by the close of the fiscal year for outstanding debt. On the Water Enterprise Fund, Water Enterprise is actually down $95,382, And on the expense side, that the largest reduction is on capital outlay, which is reduced by $115,338. And on revenue, the reduction was on the use of fund balance, which was reduced by $98,461. Wastewater is showing a proposed increase of $270,843. The largest increase or driver here would be on commodities, which is up $231,875. And on the revenue side of it, revenue for usage fees is up $203,606. And solid waste is showing a proposed decrease of $115,709. That would be from services, which is down $115,168. And on the revenue side, the proposed use of fund balance is being reduced by $168,079. And finally, on the last page, this is the last page. This is, again, the use of fund balance. And I added a column because I know we had a discussion at the last meeting we had, March 20th. So I did throw in a new column for the estimated fund balance as of the end of the current fiscal year. Obviously, estimate at this point, unaudited, but to provide an estimate, we're projecting a overall decrease by about $40,000. And that's actually where we're assuming a fund balance, a surplus in the current fiscal year, but we're also using a fund balance for the next fiscal year of $1,043,000. So we are projecting a surplus for the current year right now. It's early, but we are also using fund balance next year. So that's where we're going down slightly, but basically staying status quo. And I know we did have a discussion on this, or there were questions raised last time. So that 1752, that is, if taking the fund balance down to, say, 17% is we have a policy on the books between 10 and 17. GFOA recommends up to a minimum of 16.7 or 2 months. So if we took it down to 17%, we'd basically have about $462,000 of fund balance that could be allocated, say, to one-time expenses and still maintain that strong rating. Again, I think this is something we would probably get into more as the end of the fiscal year closes, probably June, but to give you, I wanted to be able to provide some information on this now. And that is all.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from members for Brian right now? Any questions from school committee members? All right, I got one I want to pose at you, Brian. On page, I think it's 11 and 12, it shows the swing in state aid, an increase of about $2.5 million. I just want you to further explain that to us so we can understand better.
Yes. So when the budget was adopted last year, the town adopts in April, May. At that time, we were not anticipating, the town was not anticipating the phase out of the last year of the motor vehicle. So we were showing last year, we were projecting collecting taxes for motor vehicle within the tax levy, and we were projecting not receiving the full amount of state aid if it had been phased out last year. So after the state budget was adopted, we had a swing where instead of collecting the taxes, there was basically a $2 to $3 million swing. Instead of collecting that revenue from the taxpayers, we got increased state aid reimbursement, and we were not collecting those taxes. So there was a shift after the budget was adopted last year.
But the money came in after it was adopted? So
Yes.
it still came in, it's just not reflected in the adopted budget?
Correct. Well, it's reflected in the budget, it's not reflected in the levy.
Like a swing on paper, but not really a swing?
Right. The town was made whole, but it was just, we will receive the funds via state aid rather than collecting them via taxes.
Gotcha. All right, now I want to bring you back to the fund balance on the last slide here, slide 23. You said bring down the unassigned fund balance to the 17%. That would sort of lessen that amount by about $462,000. You said best practice would be toward a one-time expense. We say that would be best applied toward the debt service fund to help prepare for the,
It could,
School
yeah,
facilities?
any number of things. It could go towards a debt service fund, it could go towards capital, and we could reduce our reliance on capital next year. You could leave it in the fund balance. I mean, the rating agency certainly, if the town is going for a bond, if the bond should pass and the town goes for a bond and we have to issue that debt, the higher the fund balance is, will be a stronger selling point for the town in terms of keeping that rating. So any number of those, they're all, as long as they're staying north of 17%, I think we're going to be okay. But I either using it for one-time expenses or building up our debt service reserve or leaving it within our unassigned fund balance would all be favorable.
So, Rory, I'm glad you brought that up, if I can just jump in for a second. Is that something that we might be able to use to leverage matching funds for water infrastructure?
I don't think water, because water is an enterprise fund. So that would be, that water is funded by the ratepayers.
So, I think, just to follow up, I think Jim had talked about getting some federal grants in the future, and that we would need, I think you had said $3 million. So, while it could be used for lots of things, I think.
That's what just jumped to my,
Yeah.
as soon as I heard that, I was like,
So
we
they're
maybe
both
help.
good, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
So they're both good questions and comments, but we're talking about the infrastructure, that's what we're trying to improve, that's where we need the money. So this year, we did apply for a big earmark from Senator Reed's office, and it was talked about, but we would need, at a minimum, to have a $3 million bond ready. That's money that the town would have to bond for, and it could go up to, the total cost could be $15 million to do that project we want to do with a water filtration system. The reason we decided to hold off was because of this PFAS stuff that the engineers are talking about. We don't know what that's going to bring to town. We could end up spending a ton of money on carbon filtration systems already without investing millions and millions of dollars into new filtration systems. So we're going to wait a year, see where these new guidelines come in, and take it from there.
Right, thanks for that clarification. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jim. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? All right. Oh, Mike, go ahead.
Two quick things. One, Jim, under the senior services revenues, where do we stand with Narragansett?
Another good question. Monday night, I'll be leaving this meeting early to go to the town council meeting. I'm on the agenda for April 17th. So where we stand with that is, so everyone understands, we've had a handshake deal with the town of Narragansett for about over 20 years now, since we opened up the new senior center. And there's about 5,000 seniors that go to the senior center. Not 5,000 visits, 5,000 individuals. About 3,000 are South Kingstown residents. 500 come from wherever, one-offs. But about 1,500 come from Narragansett. And there's hundreds and thousands of visits by these seniors for meals, for classes, for everything else that goes along with it. So that senior center is a very expensive thing to run, $600,000-$700,000 when all included. But we've asked as a fair share amount of $101,000 from the town of Narragansett for the 1,500 seniors that go there and use our facility. It truly is a joint. It really is a joint type senior shared service that both towns are proud of. But they cut $46,000 last year in the last budget. They offered us $55,000 to cover last year, and I did not accept a check. It's still sitting in my office. So I'm going Monday night to explain the value that the town of Narragansett gets, and respectfully asking that we sign an MOU so that we formalize things in perpetuity, 3-year increments. That'll be $102,000 ask Monday night. We spend about $135 per senior per year. That's minuscule. We spend about $1,300 per dog or cat per year at the animal shelter. So that's just the way it is. But it just shows you how much value we get at that senior center for so little amount of money.
And Narragansett's getting it too.
Exactly.
The second question is for Raquel on the school side. We've talked in prior hearings about maintenance of effort, which is a Rhode Island Department of Education requirement. Can you address how level funding addresses the RIDE requirement on maintenance of effort?
As the budget's presented here, maintenance of effort is giving the same appropriation to the school department that has been given to them in prior years. There is, within Rhode Island general law, that you can calculate on a per pupil basis if there is a drop in enrollment. That being said, that's one part of the second calculation. The second part of the second calculation would be when you're looking at that reduction in revenue, you also have to meet certain mandates on the expenditure side. That being said, you have to fund all contractual agreements, not just employee contractual agreements, all contractual agreements that a school department has. That would be transportation, tuition, facilities, every contract that the school committee has committed to. Must also fund to a certain dollar amount special education, as well as Article 9, which is maintenance of effort. On top of that, you must meet all requirements within the basic education program, which is mandated by RIDE. So the calculation per pupil is just the revenue side, but you must meet all the expenditure mandates as well.
What's the consequence to a town that if RIDE finds a failure to maintain effort?
You must provide that dollar amount to the school department.
Okay, thank you.
If we could just go back to the senior center situation with Narragansett. Do we know anything about a senior advisory committee?
Yes. 2016, I just happened to be the town manager there, and we formed a senior advisory council between both towns. I left in 2019 to go back to the state police, and there hasn't been a meeting since. So that's another thing we want to resurrect. It would, last time there was a town council member from both town councils that was on the senior advisory committee, and it's really just joint goals and objectives for the towns. I just want to say, I'm very hopeful Monday night this all works out. Once our explanation is given, once they see the value, recognize the value, we did have the vice president of their council come to the senior center. It's probably the best senior center in the whole state, because URI, they do classes on history and language and planning for Medicaid and all that other stuff. So and they bring a lot of grant money. So I'm very hopeful that that council sees the value and we just work it all out Monday night.
I did receive a message from Councilwoman Bonanno, and she did mention the senior advisory committee and indicated that, you know, she would like to talk about it over the weekend. So hopefully we can, I don't know.
That's definitely on for discussion at the agenda, Monday's agenda with Narragansett.
Okay.
Talk about the reimbursement for the $46,000 they owe us. Talk about an MOU moving forward, and talk about the senior advisory committee solidifying that as well.
Right, okay, that sounds good.
Thank you, Jim. All right. Any other thoughts, comments, school committee members? All right, this is a public hearing, so we're going to open it up. Anyone who wishes to speak on the 23-24 preliminary adopted budget, I invite you to come on up. We just ask that you first introduce yourself, and we're going to limit you to 5 minutes. And if you want to talk, come to the microphone. Doral.
Either.
Both. It's both, Doral.
Earl Beasley, Kingston. School budget is, I believe the school budget's a little misleading. When you look at the budget, and it shows an $800 and some thousand decrease from this past year and a 1.3% decrease overall. It really, that decrease is from taking about $1 million some dollars, fewer dollars from grant money. So when you look at the budget in that light, there's actually an increase. Our cost per student this year, when the numbers come out in a couple of years, it's going to be about $27,000, almost $28,000 per student. Now, if you level fund again this coming year, it's going to be $28,500 per student. Now, I did an analysis of school districts of similar size in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts for both similar budgets, with a similar budget to ours, which is around 60 some million dollars. Those others, 27 school districts in our three states educated 700 more students than we did. So the question begs the question, why the big difference? When you look at it for enrollments, what I found was that the 25 districts in the three states that have similar enrollments, plus or minus 5%, our budget's $12.5 million greater than, on average, than those other 24 districts. Again, I ask, why? Now, there's excess. I'd like to sit down maybe with your, I'm not an accountant, but I wouldn't mind sitting down with the town's financial advisor maybe on Monday if he wants to. There's a built-in compensation increase in this coming year's budget of 6.3%. Now, on average, over the last decade, the average increase per year is like 1.3%, 2.3%. So 2.3 versus, 2.8 versus 6.3. If we had the increase in the compensation from last year to this coming year is almost 5%, and the benefits is 10%. But overall, when you add them both together, it's like 6.5%. So I'm kind of confused because you show a budget that has a 1.3% decrease, but in actuality, you're increasing compensation to the people that are going to be working in this district by 6.3%. The differential between, if it was the 2.8% that we've had over the last decade and that 6.3%, works out to about $1.6 million. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, in my mind, this year, I believe, in this year's school budget right now, there's over $2 million that's not being accounted for. And
Door at the 5. Just want to ask if we can ask if anyone else wants to speak.
okay,
All right.
there's not a big turnout today.
Let me pose the question. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? All right, Joel, you get 2 minutes.
So when you look at the school district, by the school, you know, when you go and look at their budget under the columns for each school, this year in Wakefield Elementary School, we had between 60 and 70 students, pre-K students, but half of them were half-a-day students and the other half were full-day students. The cost for each of those students, using the total amount of money, $3-some million, it shows in this year's budget, is like $50,000 per student. Now, really? That can't be right. Because I went and looked at the last 3 years, and the average was about $17,000 per student. I believe there's at least $1.3 million in Wakefield's column that doesn't belong there. Also, what I can't find in this budget is any mention to how many people have never been working here. This year's budget was based on 442 people. We've never had 442 people working here. So where's that compensation? There's over $2 million, at least $2 million in this budget, this year's budget, that can't be accounted for. But you're going to give them another level funding?
All right, thank you, Doral.
I just want to make one clarifying comment there that, and I could be wrong, Dorald, but I'm just going to throw it out there because preschool special education is my wheelhouse. It's what I do. And if the cost per pupil for those students at Wakefield, I think that we need to understand that it's a special education school. It exists to service special education students, peers, community peers that attend, they pay separately. And we know that the cost to educate special education students is going to be higher than it will cost to educate a typically developing student. So I just want to make sure that people know that SKIP is South Kingstown Inclusionary Preschool. It is a special education school, and it's there to service special education students.
Thank you, Jess. Go ahead, Carol.
I just want to add, Jess is absolutely right. But also, there was a great change in Wakefield School. It was an elementary school, so certain fixed costs were spread over a lot more students. Now you have just the preschool, so things like, electricity and other costs for the building are now spread only over a few students. So it's, yes, special education, which this program is 100%, is going to look more costly because, again, it was a larger school. Now it's a smaller school. Those costs are going to look more per pupil, but you shouldn't be cutting it that way because of the difference. You can't compare one year to the other when there was such a great change in the attendance of the school.
And I'm hopeful that we'll see that number improve when we find a permanent home for the preschool program, right? That it will. The numbers will come down. We just have to get there.
On a different tack altogether, I'm not going to comment about the preschool, but please tell me if I'm wrong, but in the simplest terms, the holder of the checkbook and the savings account is the town, correct? All the purchasing gets cleared through the town system. You're not processing the checks on the school department side, correct?
With regards to budgeting or procurement, we share a financial system. This budget is built, forecasted on actual staff, actual benefits, and actual expenditures, which the town has total access to, as well as our purchasing.
Correct. So in simplest terms, when people say the school department has $2 million, you don't have your own set of stuff over here that Brian does not have access to. You share, utilize a common system that Brian has access to.
We have an appropriation, but yes, the town has access to our extremely detailed budget, as well as every expenditure, as well as every revenue, every grant that comes into the town.
I'm just saying that because people, when it's said that there's missing money, the money is held over here. It goes out from the town side. Like, you organize it, but it's routed out through a municipal anchored system.
Brian looks at every expenditure and has questions, and we answer them when he has those questions.
Right. That's how I always understood it. And so when people say, where is that $2 million? Well, it's somewhere on our side. You know, at the end of the day, that money, we should be able to see what's there, right? I'm trying to speak very simply so that people understand it in a way that makes sense.
Just to touch on this as well, for payroll purposes, we will receive the summary for every 2 weeks for the payroll. I will transfer the money from the town's general fund to the school department payroll account. And with regards to AP checks, I will get a summary of the AP checks on a weekly basis. We'll review them, we'll ask questions as needed, and the checks are actually printed in the town finance office. So yes, we do have oversight, and we will check on them as well, and ask questions as needed. Yes.
So, and I really appreciate what Doral says, and when he advocates for it, just, as I understand it, that couldn't be true, right? So that it couldn't be that there's $2 million hidden somewhere that you, Brian, finance director, couldn't see it.
And truthfully, beyond Raquel and I, we have our audit firm that comes out every year.
Right.
That's an independent audit that is performed for the town, school and town.
Right. So I'm just trying to reconcile, because Doral is very bright and he's very capable and he has great ideas. It's hard to reconcile the disconnect, so I'm just trying to have a conversation. So he's not looking right now, but I don't understand it, Doral. Like, they can't hide it. So then my next question is, so where is it? If it exists, where would it be? I don't know.
All right.
I can't hear him.
Yeah, I know.
So,
my take is the internal controls in place will prevent any such happening, and that the annual audit provides assurance as to the internal controls, and that gives further assurance that it is not happening. So those are good things to have in place. And Doral, we hear your suspicion, but the controls in place almost negate that suspicion, and that's a good thing. So anyway, any last final thoughts? Michelle, go ahead.
thank you, Rory.
And just to add to that, Brian and Raquel, to my recollection, in 11 years of going through the audits of the town and school department finances, those audits have always come out clean.
Correct. The town has had a clean audit for as far back as I can remember, and actually, we get a Distinguished Audit Award for, I think it's been 32 or 33 years. That was one thing when taking the job I was very nervous about. I'm like, that's a lot of pressure to keep that going. It's been 32, 33 years straight. I don't want to mess that up. But it's been 32, 33 years straight, where the town has received an award from the GFOA on distinguished auditing. So yes.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
One more comment, contrary to the statement that per pupil cost is $27,000. The Rhode Island Department of Education, in its own review for the latest year, 21-22, found the cost per pupil in South Kingstown at $23,850, not 27.
I don't think that I didn't hear it that way. I think he thinks it's the future cost will be showing at 27,000. So, nonetheless, it's frustrating, and we need to recognize that the community sees that the per pupil cost goes down, and we're still transferring over the same amount. And so, yes, it does change the ratio of whatever it is. And so you have to zoom out to the big picture, and they need to understand why, and maybe it's contractual obligations, maybe it's whatever, 10,000 things. It's very hard to run a school department. I don't want to do it. But like, people don't understand that, and it's our job, all of us, to make sense so that people can understand it. And so I don't hear it as 24,000 or 27,000. This is a frustration. Help me get them. The community wants to be generous. They just want the best value for the money that they give.
I think also one of the things that I've talked about with Carol, and I don't know if you can speak to that sometimes different school departments do their budgets differently. For instance, they may not report all of the grants that they get, and that artificially makes their per pupil spending look lower. Carol, is that correct? Or
Yes, I just want to always caution people, when you look at the numbers, not every district uses the same standards or the same practices. So when I go out and look at East Greenwich, they are missing revenue codes. So it's not apples to apples. So you've got to dig deeper. And that's just a caution for anybody comparing our district to another.
Thank you, Carol.
thank you.
All right. Any last final thoughts? Okay, we have reached the end here. Thank you for everyone's time. Good meeting. And we'll see you all again on Monday, April 17th, same time, same place.
Do you need a motion to close the public hearing or no?
All
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone
Motion to
opposed?
adjourn?
No, that passes.
Second.
Motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, this meeting is now adjourned.